Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I do hope it finds you well. My name is John, and I am an author, and welcome to my writing space. I'm coming to you here today, posting this a little late. This might not go out until Friday, but coming to you here today with my Storytime Thursday, this time reading chapter 27 of my book, The Shadow of the Past. Um, Before we get started, it'd be awesome if you were to give a like to the video, as well as subscribe, join my channel, as well as join my socials. Check out my website, my book, all posted down below. I've been doing some daily writing exercises that I've been posting on my website, so I encourage you to check those out. And really, any of that would be helping out a aspiring author and a channel like mine. So I'm going to get started here. So up until now, we've had the last chapter. Val'inar has succeeded in getting the Telmaran Union on side against the threat of Kyral, but there still remains the danger of Kyral himself. So, chapter 27, The Ritual of Joining. Val'inar stood upon a hill with his arms crossed, surveying his ever-growing army. Every day, every hour, portals were opened through which poured fresh troops from every corner of Si'ranna. Val'inar wondered if there had ever been such a gathering, even in the days of the Long War. He doubted it. Val'inar had stopped counting some time ago, although it was in the hundreds of thousands now, surely. Supplying them was proving to be difficult, and for the first time he was finding himself grateful that the opening of Kiral's prison was imminent, because feeding a vast army in such a desolate area would shortly become impossible, even with the aid of portals. His friends knew that too. They questioned him daily on how soon the spell would be undone and Kyral and his armies released. At the moment, Val'inar guessed that it would be about 5 days, a week on the outside, but there was no way of being sure. Above all, Val'inar was impressed at how well so many diverse groups that had until recently been unfriendly, if not actually at war with each other, were working together. There were certainly some fights, some squabbles, but that was as much about the stress and tension that impending battle brought as it was about the underlying animosities between the groups. The tireless work of Val'inar and his commanders was in part responsible for this integration, especially of the still somewhat distrusted Union soldiers, but the degree to which all were willing to band together was still impressive. The great tear was now many yards in size, and the binding stones were a great distance from each other. Although the bottom was still beyond sight, the chasm seemed to be growing shallower. So many tents and makeshift dwellings dotted the barren grass that one would almost think that it had snowed were it not for the many figures moving around between the tents. The camp was set up about a mile from where Val'inar planned to fight. There would be several hours' warning before the binding spell collapsed completely, and that would give his army enough time to form up in position to fight that final bloody battle. It wasn't enough. They were fighting an enemy of tremendous power who could wipe his army out with little trouble. Val'inar saw the sense in the demon's words that Kyral did not wish to kill so many, but he knew that just as he was reticent to kill, Kyral would do so if he was presented with no other choice. Some solution to the problem of Kyral had to be found before his prison opened. There was none that could face Kyral in his terms, and none that Kyral would deign face on theirs. It was for this reason, besides Survey's swelling forces, that Val'inar had chosen to climb the high foothill overlooking the great barren waste upon which the future of Si'ranna would be decided. He needed peace and quiet if he was going to summon the Six to him. After taking in the sight of his armies swarming like ants over the grass, he closed his eyes and concentrated his will upon the Aere. He took up strands of each of the six elements and traced them to their greatest concentration, and at each point he found the response he was looking for, a presence, an intelligence, and for each he called, and they heard and came. Being closest to her seat of power, Shiniri was the first to arrive. Racing like an out-of-control wildfire, Val'inar felt her approach in the area long before he saw the red wisp that was the essence of her. The wisp came to a halt a few feet from Val'inar and hovered for a moment before taking on the shape of the woman she had once been. Standing translucent in an imitation of the robes she once dressed in, with hair gleaming behind her, she stared at Val'inar. To what purpose have you summoned us here, Val'inar? She demanded, in him fiery as ever. Val'inar simply smiled and told her to wait for the others to arrive. The next were Celia and Mokton. Their spirits raced across the plain as a ray of sunlight and a shadow chasing each other over the fields, like clouds passing over the sun. The white wisp that was her and the black wisp that was him took their form. Greetings once more, son of Yanira, Celia said, bowing. You have summoned us all, I take it? You have summoned us all, I take it, added Mokton. To both of them, Val'inar merely smiled and nodded. Enderon was the next to arrive, traveling over the plain as a whirlwind whipping through the grass. He took the form of the tall man that he had been. It has been many years since we met in person, boomed Enderon. The end must truly be near for us to be brought together in one place. Miramas arrived next, as the others were exchanging greetings. Like a powerful root questing for water, he moved through the ground. The green wisp that was his essence seemed to sprout from the ground to take the shattered form of a tall and thin elf. You have come a mighty long way, Val'inar, smiled Miramas before he turned to greet the others as well. Finally, like a great wave rushing upon the shore, came Aere. She too soon stood translucent in the semblance of the body of the woman she had once been, and greeted the others. I sense that your travels have been hard, Val'inar, and that your trials are not over, she mused, almost to herself by way of greeting. Val'inar rose and slowly turned to face the six, one by one, before taking a deep breath and addressing them. It seems such a long time since I first heard Miramas call and ventured into the heart of the Toronto forest, although it has been mere months, he began. I have learned and gained much from you and more besides, and now we are come to the end. The prison you placed Kyral in is coming undone. Soon he and the descendants of those you imprisoned with him will come spilling forth onto Si'ranna once more. I confess that I think that imprisoning Kyral in the way you did may well have been a mistake, and imprisoning his followers was nothing short of a crime. But now is not the time for recriminations or accusations. They are coming, and the risk of them ravaging this Terra in revenge is very real, and they must be stopped, and for that I need your help. You are right, Val'inar, replied Celia with some hesitation. We long ago acknowledged our own guilt in bringing the situation to a pass, and the crime of imprisoning Kyral's followers hangs heavy over our heads. But there is little we could do. Kyral too would have been freed had we freed his followers, and while he was for many long years our friend, we did not know him any longer. We did not know what he would been like after such an imprisonment. Indarin's voice, now a whisper, now a boom, was the next to sound. We cannot renew the prison. It took all our power to create it in the first place, and even had we that former strength, we would not be able to go against the momentum of the enchantment unraveling. Shiniri continued, and even if we could separate Kyral from his followers, we no longer have the power to create a new prison, even a much smaller one, let alone while being actively opposed by Kyral. Val'inar nodded slowly. All of this I know. What I have called you here for is to see if there is anything else that can be done to either weaken Kyral's power or strengthen mind, so as to make the contest a more even one. The six shared a look between them, and there was another long silence, but it was Mokton who finally responded. I do not think that there is. It took all of us together to match Kyral's power before, and none of us had his skill. It is doubtful that anything could be done to weaken him. And we have given you all we can, continued Maramas. You may not be aware of it, but just as the channeling of the Aere weakens one, so does such a sudden increase in connection. You may not feel any different, but you need time to recover. And even if we could, could expand your ability to channel and shape the Aere, finished Lyra, it would not help you. You have been given great power by Kyral, and once we as well, have the power to control the area itself. What he wills, it does. You would need to be many times more powerful than you are now to contend directly with Kyral in this manner. Thank you, Val'inar responded quietly. You have given me a lot to think on. Please stay close. Even in your diminished capacity, you will likely still prove useful. The six elementals gave their own versions of encouragement as they slowly drifted away. Val'inar resumed his seat upon the hill once more and slowly surveyed his army once more, although he did not really take in what was in front of him. He was lost in thought, and his perception watched as the elementals slowly drifted away. They were no more help than I expected them to be, Val'inar reflected out loud. They are weak, observed the demons. Yes, I do not know what Kyral has done to diminish their power, but they are indeed but mere shades of what they once were, he acknowledged. It is despair that weakens them. If only I could discover how Kyral did it, perhaps I could undo it, said Val'inar. Do you not have any thoughts on how he was able to inflict such despair upon them? The demon chuckled. Kyral did nothing to them. 'Twas their own despair that long ago robbed them of their power. So Kyral was not responsible for their weakened state, repeated Val'inar. How can that be? They told me it was Kyral. Did they lie to me? Despair can be inspired, influenced, or increased within another, but much like love, there is no spell or power that can cause one to despair, responded the demon, and I do not think the six were willful in their deception. Until they sensed Usharan the threat of Kiral's return, I would wager it would have been some thousands of years since any of them endeavored to use even a fraction of their power. And on discovering their weakness, there is sense in their placing the blame on Kyral. Why would they come to such despair, especially with all the power they possess? Inquired Val'inar. They despair of living, was the demon's response. None of them were born immortal, and to any of you mortal species, the longer your lives run, the harder you find it to bear. What do you mean, you mortal races? Retorted Val'inar with a slight touch of indignity. I am of the elven race. The demon laughed aloud at this. Elves may not be subject to age or common mortality, but you handle your great gift little better than the other races in the long run. You live, what, 1,500, maybe 2,000 years, and then you succumb to your own despair. You retreat into the things that you love, you hide from the world, and as time goes on, you fade further and further away. You may not be counted among the dead, but you have ceased to be what you once were. Were they immortal before they bound themselves to this Terra? Yes, replied the demon. They were not born thus, but each in their own way attained great power. The power to walk among the Terra, the power to shape things on a grand scale. And with such power comes freedom from the curse of immortal death. They bound themselves to this Terra so that they could remake it into their paradise, in the hopes of forgetting the things they had seen and done in their already long lives. Then they fell to squabbling over how to do so, and discovered, to their eventual horror, that the binding prevented their death. So they cannot ever die, said Val'inar, nor fade away, nor escape that which they hate most of all, themselves, scoffed the demon. Pathetic. Why pathetic? Inquired Val'inar. The demon's laughter boomed forth once more, cold and derisive. Because they squander and hate a gift which they are unworthy of, the freedom from mortality. All demons are born immortal. The only way we can meet death is if we are destroyed completely. And yet we do not despair of life or come to loathe ourselves. I was in that dark prison far longer than Kyral and the others have been alive, and I do not despair. Does Kyral despair the way the elementals have? Was the question which suddenly occurred to Val'inar. I would not be surprised, was the demon's cool response. But the way he is bound to the Terra is different than that of the others. He is the very balance point of the Aere. His power cannot diminish the way his former friends have, and one must be careful. Despair can do strange things. Many seek death as the six do, but it is not unheard of for one to become more hateful and destructive while under the grip of despair. Val'inar sighed, which leads us right back to where we have begun, what to do about Kyral. How do you know how Kyral is bound to the Terra? I was wondering how long it would take you to work that out, chuckled the demon. It was I who invented the spell and taught it to them long ago. I still remember the day they came to my cave to beat it out of me. I think all of them have come to regret making that request many times over. And I am guessing that you did not tell them that the binding would make them truly immortal. I am glad to see that our conversations are causing your brain to work for a change. I am beginning to understand a few things, remarked Val'inar, like why you are in no hurry to remake Kiral's acquaintance and why you spent this morning so certainly encouraging me not to reveal your presence to the elementals. The six concern me little, snapped the demon. Kyral, on the other hand, is intelligent, and more to the point familiar with the power that created both this pendant and the spell that binds me to it. Given time, I am sure he could come up with some way to do something unpleasant to me, or even free me so as to reap his vengeance. Is there a way to undo the binding spell? Inquired Val'inar, while he processed this new piece of information on Kyral and the demon. Yes, but there is a catch. I expected as much, responded Val'inar. What is it? Oh, replied the demon, simply that Kyral and the elementals would have to perform a ritual to unbind themselves, willingly. Val'inar breathed a sigh of relief, as he had been expecting the catch to be something far worse. Well, we know the six would do so willingly, and if our guess is about Kyral, he might as well. Perhaps, acknowledged the demon, but you are forgetting that there is an entire army waiting between you and Kyral. And once the battle is joined, you really think you would live long enough to deliver that message? And that is, of course, also assuming that his despair has not driven him to anger and destruction. Val'inar took this information in. He recognized that it was true, but that did not prevent him from running through all the ways he could think of to deliver that message to Kyral. But all the while, his mind told him that any way would either involve subduing him in conflict or would likely be dismissed as some kind of trick. Val'inar lay back on the grass and stared at the slowly drifting clouds. He stretched his mind forth in all directions within the Aere. He always found it soothing to feel himself part of the very life and energy of the Terra. He could feel the tight cluster of energy that was the many men and women of his army on the plain below. He could feel the lazy drift of the clouds as they marched their way across the sky. He could feel all the little rivers and pools that dotted the landscape, like tiny drops of water running off a building. As Val'inar lay there, feeling the life force of the Terra swirling and pulsing around him, a thought occurred to him. Oh, interesting. I did not expect to ever be surprised by a thought of yours. What is it that you wish us to do? Inquired Visalia for the fourth time. She was standing together with Urgar, Narthan, Lady Myra, Targatha, and Alira. To Valinar's left hovered the shades of the elementals, who seemed just as surprised by what Valinar had just told them, and was in the process of taking a breath to explain it to them again. It is quite simple. We, Val'inar said, indicating the group of his friends standing to his right, are going to perform the ritual of joining and become one with the Terra, thus giving us the power we need to stop Kyral. Are you sure that you will survive the joining? Inquired Cilia with concern. None of you possess that power that we did when we performed the ritual. Yes, responded Val'inar, the joining binds us to the Aere rather than expanding our own natural connection to it. In addition, the fact that we were born on this terra will make this easier for us than it was for you, as outsiders. It was that which caused you such pain, not the increase in power. Most of those present nodded their heads in understanding at this, but Chinieri's eyes were focused on the pendant about Valinar's neck. And where is it that you have gotten this information? She asked. I think you know the answer to that question already, he responded with a smile. The other elementals seemed to have taken notice of the pendant by then, but none of them spoke, and even Chinieri did not seem interested in pursuing the line of questioning further. It was Urgar who spoke next. And what will this do to these other elementals? He asked. They will no longer be bound to this terror, responded Val'inar, looking carefully at the elements for any reaction. And without that power to sustain them, their spirits will pass at long last beyond the living world. And Kyral? Inquired Narthen. Will he too die? No, Val'inar sighed, having explained this twice already. Our performing the rite will only weaken, albeit greatly, his connection to this Terra. This will reduce his power, and the connection will be sufficiently weak that it will be possible to sever it. Meaning? Lady Myra said, motioning that she did not quite understand what that meant. Meaning that when he is finally released, Kyral will be a mortal enemy, Val'inar responded. It also means, although he will still be a very dangerous foe when we meet in combat, I will have the advantage, in power at least, though not in skill. So Kyral could still defeat you? Inquired Aere, with a strong note of concern in her voice. Yes, Val'inar nodded in acknowledgement, but this will give me a chance. It would give all of us a chance, the only one we have. As the rest nodded in agreement, Targotha raised the most obvious question. Has anyone asked the elementals if they are fine with simply passing away like that? Val'inar opened his mouth to respond, but Marames got to the question first. I thank you for your concern, kind elf, but we have lived far beyond our time. We should have died so many times before now. We are ready to take our rest. It is our time, especially if doing so will give Val'inar and you all a chance to end the nightmare we so long ago plunged this Terra into. All seemed satisfied with this, and they stood looking at Val'inar expectantly for him to tell them they should do. All right, stand in a circle around me, Val'inar began. Targatha, my brother, take the place before Marames. You have been a rock to me all my days, in steadying me and moderating me with your sensible wisdom. You care for and nurture all those who seek your aid. You care for your own woods and this Terra, and it flourishes under your guidance. It is to you that the control of Earth shall be granted. Narthen, my friend, you are a delver of dark places. Your sight in the darkness allows you to see the truth of things. You tread the darkness without fear to bring aid to others, and you use its power to conceal and to protect. It is therefore to you that shall be given the power of darkness. Desalia, old friend and pupil, you ride your swift steeds across the plain, bringing aid where it is needed. You are swift and sure, you strike at those who threaten and give comfort to those who are your friends. It is for this reason that you are to have the power over the air, which you so greatly love. Urgar, my good friend and traveling companion, you burn with passion for the cause of your people and your friends. You raise the unwary and the wicked, and you give warmth and light to your friends with your wise counsel. That is why you are to be given power over the fire. Lady Myra, friend and staunch ally, like the sea upon which your people make their living, your strength is deep. You sustain and support your friends and hurry them to their goals, and you wreck your enemies with that strength. For this you are granted the power of water. Aere, you shine like the stars your people worship, giving comfort and guidance to your friends in their darkest hour. You see far and you know much, and your counsel enlightens us all. Receive now the power of the light in your keeping. In the middle I shall stand, the balance point, possessing all elements and balancing them all. I take it upon myself to serve as the focal point and stability for the area across this entire Terra. May my will be strong enough to accept such a burden and bring tranquility to all. When Val'inar saw that things had been arranged as he instructed, he said, now we shall all get down on our knees and extend our arms so that your longest fingers are just barely touching me. Val'inar knelt with his friends, and when he felt the slight pressure of 6 hands upon him, he continued to speak. All right, now we will perform the ritual. I know my part already. The elementals will tell you what to say, but first you must all take firm hold of the strands of Aere, to which you will soon be joined. Val'inar concentrated and gathered up the strands of the 6 elements and held them tightly, and felt the others do the same with the strands that he had chosen them to be bound to, the elements that they wielded most naturally to begin with. All right, Val'inar said after several moments. First you must all repeat after me. Then Aere will speak, then Narthen, then Myra, then Urgar, then Desalia, and then Targotha, and then myself. And then we will all finish the incantation together. His friends all nodded in acknowledgement and understanding. Repeat after me. Mavaronek Ashmala Dremnor Bliskalva, Lemtasharan Gremthrink Ashmala, Ashmala Satravarna, Restricta Ashmala. Elements of this Terra, elements of Si'ranna, we call to you. Bind us, give us the strength to fight. Light, dark, water, fire, wind, earth, we beseech thee, give us your strength, for in you shall we prosper, and in our prospering so shall you. Mavronik Ashmala, Vertricta Ashmala. Val'inar felt the Aere pulse and intensify as they finished the first chant, and then Aere and Celia chanted the next part together. Mavaronik Ashmala, Dremnor Bliskalva. Light, sight-giving, day's child, warming, brightening light. Light, scorching, burning, beating, blinding light. I call to thee, bind me to thee, give me this thy strength. Mavaronik Ashmala, Vertricta Ashmala. Like the sun on a summer day, the area of light glowed bright and scorched him, and he could feel Aere wince in pain, but she did not falter. It was Narthan's turn to speak, and he intoned with Mockton. Mavaronik Ashmala, Dremnor Biskalva. Dark, shrouding, protecting, soothing, peaceful dark. Dark, misguiding, beguiling, hiding and sneaking dark. I call to thee, bind me to thee, give me thy strength. Mavaronik Ashmala, Vertricta Ashmala. Like a deepening shadow on a moonless night, the area of darkness grew, and Narthan flinched, but he did not falter. Aere began to speak next, with Lady Myra speaking after her. Mavaronik Ashmala, Dremnor Biskalva. Water, quenching, cooling, moving, guiding water. Water rushing, flooding, drowning, eroding water. I call to thee, bind me to thee, give me thy strength. Mavaronik Ashmala, Vertricta Ashmala. Like a great tidal wave, the area of water crested, and both Myra and Val'inar were swayed by its power, but Myra did not falter. Val'inar spoke his incantation with his Shiniri next. Mavaronik Ashmala, Dremnor Biskalva. Fire warming, lighting, cooking, purging fire. Fire raging, charring, scorching, consuming fire. I call to thee, bind me to thee, give me thy strength. Mavaronik Ashmala, Vertricta Ashmala. Like a towering flame, the area of fire climbed higher and higher in its power. The heat caused Urgar to shake along with Val'inar, but he did not falter. Endarin guided Tessalia through invoking her element next. Mavaronik Ashmala, Dremnor Biskalva. Air breathing, cooling, pushing, turning air. Air whirling, tearing, rending, biting air. I call to thee, bind me to thee, give me thy strength. Mavaronik Ashmala, Vertricta Ashmala. Like a great gale, the area of air roared to potent life and unsteadied Tessalia, but she did not falter. It was at last Targotha's turn, and with the aid of Meramas he proceeded. Mavaronik Ashmala, Dremnor Biskalva. Earth, nurturing, giving, growing, protecting earth. Earth, crushing, grinding, quaking, breaking earth. I call to thee, bind me to thee, give me thy strength. Mavaronik Ashmala, Vertricta Ashmala. Like a herd of wild animals, the area of earth gained in strength, causing Targotha to quake, but he did not falter. At last it was Val'inar's turn, and he intoned what the demon had told him. Mavaronik Ashmala, Dremnor Biskalva. Elements helping, protecting, servants, tools, the elements. Elements harming, unfeeling, masters, weapons, elements. I call to thee, bind me to thee, give me thy strength. Mavaronik Ashmala, Vertricta Ashmala. All of the elements gained many times in strength for Val'inar, and he gritted his teeth with the strain of it. He took several deep breaths before leading his friends in the final part of the rite. Mavaronik Ashmala, Dremnor Biskala, elements of this Terra, elements of Si'ranna, join with us. Give us your strength and let us prosper together. Mavaronik Ashmala, Vertricta Ashmala. Join with us, join with us, join with us. The pain was beyond anything Val'inar could describe. So much so that he was no longer aware of what the elements were doing, but he could feel them all twisting within him, changing him, remaking him. He screamed with the pain of a terror twisted and distorted by enchantments, and he at last comprehended just what the six had done. He blacked out, he was not sure for how long, and he would have admitted had anyone asked him that he was surprised to open his eyes and find himself alive. He was lying upon the ground, drenched in sweat, and so weak that he could not move at all. He saw through bleary eyes that his friends were in a similar state to himself. It was several minutes before he was able to move, and as his strength slowly returned, he sat up and found himself overjoyed that all six of his friends were still alive. In fact, although they did not look it, he felt them far more alive than he had ever felt anyone. He could feel their power, their strength, many times greater than what he had been used to. He was also aware of six fading wisps around the small circle they had formed. All six of the former elementals were smiling at him as their forms slowly faded. Celia addressed him as if from a great distance away. Be careful, son of Yanira. Kyral is diminished, but he has fought gods in his time and won. Be wary of him. Just as they were becoming hard to see, a strong wind picked up and seemed to carry the six away. As he felt them go, he heard them say together, in voices so faint that he would not have heard it at all had they not spoken at once. Thank you. Val'inar stood up cautiously and helped his friends to their feet. He carefully stretched out his perception and felt the whole Terra in all its power and wonder. He smiled to himself. At last he was ready. All right, that is the conclusion of chapter 27. I really do hope you enjoyed it. If you have any thoughts, opinions, comments to make, I would love to hear them. Please post those down below. Please also, it'd be awesome if you were to help out my channel by liking, sharing, subscribing, all that jazz, as well as checking out my books and socials and my website down below. Um, all of that would be greatly appreciated. But for the moments, and for today, I do hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next one. I hope you have a chance to do or experience something creative, and catch you on the next one.